I'm going to be going over the 4 classics that we read this week and giving some theories that I kind of pondered after reading them. So I thought it was pretty cool how scientific management can be applied to sports and how they've gotten it down to a science. They've studied what each position needs to be successful, what type of traits that player needs to have, etc. But it did bring me to these thoughts of over-optimization and how that does not leave room for unexpected variables that could be beneficial. You know, you've got a new player that he's still adapting, he isn't the best. You put him in the last 5 minutes of the game, boom, unexpectedly, he hits a home run, the game is won. You weren't expecting it, but it was a benefit. Other side of it, your star player, he's going through some things, or he might be injured slightly, coming back from an injury. He's not at his best, you guys take a loss. Another variable that affects the game is the weather. Rain would be extremely difficult to play in, and also a heat wave. Those things can change the trajectory of a game. And so ultimately, I came to this final thought that when you are maximizing efficiency over creativity, unfortunately, you have to sacrifice creativity, and then you would miss out on the variables that you don't expect that could be helpful. Power of bureaucracy. It brought up some concerns for me, specifically of moral ambiguity. You know, in different positions of authority, people have to make decisions that impact other people. Sometimes people die behind these decisions, not to be taken lightly. But you will see these people saying things like, oh, I was just following procedures, or I was just following orders. And so, yeah, it brought up some thoughts for me about how bureaucracy can sometimes make immoral actions seem morally neutral, and it is concerning. And so I think it's just something to be aware of, like when you are in a position that you do need to follow different procedures and orders, making sure one, it aligns with your morals, but also, making sure that you're not so stuck in checking off the box that you weren't considering other important things. Intro to Studying Public Administration. This was really interesting, and a thought that I had about it was how public administration also standardizes how people interact with the government. And it brought up the question that, does public admin function as a social script for society? And, I started thinking of all these different things that, we're required to do that some of us may not want to do, specifically like paying taxes, going to the DMV, you know. So it was just kind of interesting to think about, are we shaping society's behavior to fit the institutional needs? And I would say yes. We're paying taxes because it goes into different areas that help society. Different things like vaccines, we do those in order to hopefully keep diseases at bay. So yeah. I really liked reading Mary's article on the giving of orders, and I think it kind of ties into one of my other slides about moral ambiguity. I like this though, and I think that this should definitely be applied in more areas, because I do think that the reality of a situation should hold the highest form of hierarchy. There's a lot of situations where, people make a call based on protocol or, again, hierarchy, and it just is not right. I think it was said But I definitely agree that Mary's approach was definitely more holistic because the other theories were pretty rigid and strict and more mechanized, but hers was more so like including all these important things. And I think it's important that, you leave room for flexibility, judgment, and problem solving. And I think it also helps to have that adaptation because we live in a world full of unexpected errors and issues, emergencies, things happen all the time that sometimes those things that have been studied and there's a system set in place for that, it's not always going to fit the box because, the world is constantly changing and yeah, things are just unexpected. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed reading this week's articles and I'm really excited to see what you all thought and came up with.